All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today is December 22nd, Missile Monday. It's like it. Today is Monday, December 22nd, 2025, Missile Monday. And I have this article from the Japan Times. It says North Korea says Japan's nuclear ambitions must be stopped at any cost. So I'm just going to go into this article and be out a couple of scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And Salaki, if I keep clearing my throat, or if I sound a little funny, I'm battling the cold again. So let's get into it. It says North Korea said on Sunday that Japan's nuclear ambitions must be prevented at any cost after a Tokyo official reportedly suggested the country should possess atomic weapons. And I did a video on this earlier this year, where Japan, questioned, whether or not the United States was going to have its back, in the midst of a war. And in this case, World War III, because Japan is one of America's allies. And that's not a good look on America's part if, one of its allies is questioning if it's going to have its back. The same with Germany. Germany was looking to get help from, France or the UK. Excuse me, Slovakia. Because, the U.S. in particular, number 47, pretty much ignored Germany. But, Japan, they want to possess their own nuclear weapons. And we'll see, if they get some. And if they do, again, they'll just be, another nuclear armed nation, because, again, there's still speculation on whether or not Iran has, nuclear weapons. If they do, if Japan gets them, then that'll be, 11 total nuclear armed nations, So, continuing, it says Pyongyang's reaction came after the unnamed official in the prime minister's office was quoted by Kyodo News on Thursday as saying, "I think we should possess nuclear weapons." The official was reported to have been involved in Japan's, the official was reported to have been involved in devising Japan's security policy. The Kyoto report also quoted the source as saying, "In the end, we can only rely on ourselves." See? So they don't trust America. They don't trust Babylon to protect them. Says when explaining the necessity, Pyongyang said the remark showed Tokyo was openly revealing their ambition to possess nuclear weapons, going beyond the red line. Japan's attempt to go nuclear must be prevented at any cost, as it will bring mankind to a great disaster. The director of the Institute for Japan Studies under the Norse Foreign Ministry said in a statement carried by official Korean Central News Agency on Sunday, "This is not a misstatement or a reckless assertion, but clearly reflects Japan's long-cherished ambition for nuclear weaponization," said North Korean official who was not named, and rightfully so, because we have to remember the Japanese did not forget what America did to them 80 years ago, bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and those weren't the only cities that were bombed, but those were the two, notable incidences that took place that ended World War II. Because the world hadn't seen anything, like that before. So during that particular time, America had the world in fear. But now, the other nations, they aren't afraid of America anymore, which is why they want to possess their own nuclear weapons. Slovakia, page jumped. All right, Slakia. So, continuing. It says the statement did not address Pyongyang's own nuclear program, which includes an atomic test first carried out in 2006 in violation of UN resolutions. North Korea is believed to possess dozens of nuclear warheads and has reportedly vowed to keep them despite a raft of international sanctions, saying it needs them to deter perceived military threats from the United States and its allies. And indeed they do. You know, and they do. And Kim Jong-un, is, proudly parading his weaponry down the street. And he's threatened the U.S. multiple times, But eventually, it's not going to be threats anymore. Eventually, it's going to be action, But North Korea is just going to be one of the nuclear armed nations that's going to aid in the destruction of America, if you didn't know, because this place is going to be taken out by nuclear weapons. So, finishing, it says, in an address to the United Nations in September, Pyongyang's Vice Foreign Minister Kim Song-kyung said his country would never surrender its nuclear weapons. We will never give up nuclear, which is our state law, national policy, and sovereign power, as well as the right to exist, or the right to existence. Under any circumstances, we will never walk away from this position, he said. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has also said he is open to talks with Washington, provided Pyongyang is allowed to keep its nuclear arsenal. So North Korea wants to stop Japan from, possessing nuclear weapons. And if I'm not mistaken, Japan isn't that far from, North Korea or just Korea in general, because we know that Japan is, off the islands, pretty much off the coast, of China, near China, but North Korea wants to stop them from possessing nuclear weapons, meanwhile they have their own. But again, we'll see what takes place, within, next week or, 2026, because I personally believe, Japan will get them. And if they do, they're just going to add more fuel to the fire, no pun intended. So I'm just going to get a couple of scripts. Didn't want to make this one too long. So I'm going to start with the book of Joel, chapter 3 and verse 9. And it says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up, beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I'm strong. And indeed, that's what these different nations are doing. And this is what, Japan is attempting to do, to up their nuclear arsenal, because there are currently 9, possibly even 10, but we know confirmed 9 nuclear armed nations. Those top 2 nations being nuclear armed are, Russia and America. Russia having more warheads than America, estimated over 5, to 6,000 warheads, while, America has over 5,000, so, but Russia is ahead of this arms race, but this is, the weak saying they're strong, because America only possessed this technology, and then what, eventually Russia, they got this, weaponry, then China, North Korea, so on and so forth, all of the different nations, they currently have them, so this is the weak saying they're strong, man, because again, that's not good if one of your allies is questioning on whether or not you're going to have their back, so this just goes to show you that, again, man, these different nations that are in league with America are going to turn on her, and they're also going to aid in that destruction. So let's get the book of Isaiah, chapter 9 and verse 5, and it says, for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire, right? This coming World War III, is going to be, fought with nuclear technology. It's not going to be like how, traditional warfare was fought, with hand-to-hand combat. One nation on one side of the battlefield coming up against another nation on the other side, charging each other in the center of the battlefield, having the different weapons of war, swords, spears, shields, bow and arrows, those different weapons. And then, you're hearing, men cry out, letting out that battle cry, that war cry. Men scream because, they were, cut by a sword or hit with an arrow, or a spear or something, that confused noise, right? And it says this shall be a burning and fuel of fire, because this war is primarily going to be fought with these nuclear missiles. This is how the nations are going to go to work with each other, or Babylon mainly, But as I always mention, you will have ground troops that are going to be going to war with each other, but that is primarily how this war is going to be fought, with these missiles, So I'm going to jump to Isaiah, the 13th chapter, and verse 4. It says, the noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts mustereth the host of the battle. Right? That noise of a multitude, like as of a great people, the tumultuous noise, that's talking about the missiles, man, in particular, the warheads, because you're going to hear them before you see them, because there's going to be thousands upon thousands of them. They're going to cover the sky, and what are they going to do? Verse 5, it says, they come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord, and the weapons of his indignation, to destroy the whole land. And right, that's the purpose that these missiles are going to serve, primarily to destroy America, aka Babylon the Great, and to also help cleanse the earth, because the earth is polluted. Excuse me, Slakia. The earth is polluted under the rulership of Esau Edom, the so-called white man, But just like it says, the Lord is going to destroy those that destroy the earth, Slakia. So I'm going to get Revelation chapter 17 and verse 16. And it says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. And right, this is going into, America's allies. Excuse me, Slakia. This is going into, America's allies, turning on her, the NATO and EU nations, that are currently in league with America. They're going to turn on her, and they're going to shoot their missiles over here as well, So they're going to aid in that destruction, which primarily is going to be, be by way of Russia, Russia's going to be that main nation that's going to come up against America. And we know, as far as on a small scale, Russia is going to destroy America, but on a much grander scale, our Lord Yahushai, along with the angels, are going to destroy this place, So, excuse me, Salakia. I'm going to grab a couple more, and that'll be it. It's the book of Revelation, chapter 11, and verse 14. It says, the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. And right, we're seeing it, World War II, first World War One, came to pass, from 1915 to 1919. And then World War II, which is the second woe. The first woe being World War One, the second woe being World War II, which went on from 1939 to 1945, And what? It says the third woe cometh quickly, and we're seeing it, with these various things that are going on, these nations, exhausting their resources to, fund and build up their nuclear arsenal, So the third woe is coming quickly, So I'm going to end it with this. It's the book of Revelation, chapter 9, and verse 15. It says, "And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for the slated third part of men." And right, man, when you read Revelation, the 7th chapter, it mentions, four angels, which these are, four little angels holding back the four winds, which the four winds represent, the coming destruction, and just like it says in Revelation 9th chapter, these four angels are going to be loosed because there is this set time when this war is going to take place. There is a particular hour, day, month, and year when this thing is going to finally happen, and we're waiting patiently for it, but we can see it's well on the way. We're just waiting for one more major prophecy to come to pass, which is the mass implementation of the RFID microchip, which is the mark of the beast, spoken of in Revelation, the 13th chapter. Once that prophecy comes to pass, then we know we're on the way out of here soon, And just like it says, for the slated third part of men, because you have three classes of men on the earth today, which you have the sons of God, which today are the biblical Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, from the tribe of Judah all the way down to the tribe of Issachar. You have the sons of men, which are the which are the different heathen nations, the sons of men. And then you have the sons of the wicked, which are the nation of Edom, the so-called white man. And that's what this destruction is for, it's for Edom. But you will have 2/3 of the nation of Israel that are going to get caught up in this destruction. And, the heathens which aren't able to return to their homelands before this war takes place, they're just collateral damage, They're just over there. They're just over here to make their little money and die, to die the death, of the wicked. Because that's how Esau Edom is going to be taken out, by way of fire. Because he came into power by violence, and he's going to be taken out of power by violence. So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who are led this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till next time I say, Shalom.